Welcome aboard, applicants. Let's begin with the first year law students exam, October 2017, question number 2. And as with all essay questions, we begin with the call to question, so let's go there. With what crimes, if any, can Andy reasonably be charged? Discuss. 2. What defenses, if any, can Andy reasonably be raised? Discuss. Well, we know right now from our call that the use of the word crimes indicates that our area of law is criminal law. Now, to begin to start to answer our first call, we should probably frame our essay answer in such as this, okay? Crimes of Andy, question mark. And then the second call should probably be something along this line, or answering the second call. Defenses of Andy, question mark. Now remember too that the first call here, we probably want to do state v. Andy to indicate the party versus party conflict, okay? Now right here, right there, excellent, okay. Now, as with all essays as well, we have to do a first read, our movie mode first read to get a big picture perspective of the facts. Let's do that. One night, Andy went to a local bar in town. He had a large number of drinks and became intoxicated. When the bartender refused to serve him any more drinks, Andy flew into a rage and went to his car to get his handgun. With the handgun in his hand, Andy intended to return to the bar. Instead, he got confused and stumbled into the convenience store next door. Pointed the gun at Charles, the cashier, and said, "Give me a drink or I'll shoot." When Charles hesitated, Andy pointed the gun at the ceiling and fired. At the sound of the gunshot, several store customers rushed outside. One of the fleeing customers bumped into Walter, who was standing on the sidewalk outside the store. The impact caused Walter to fall into the street. Before he was able to recover, Walter was struck and killed by an oncoming car. When Andy fired the gun, the bullet struck a metal pipe, bounced off the pipe, and hit another store customer, Vicky, in the arm. She was rushed to the hospital to receive emergency medical treatment. Unfortunately, Vicky contracted an infection while at the hospital and later died. Andy claims he was so drunk he did not know what he was doing. He insists he never wanted to hurt anybody. Now, in beginning our second read, which would be our issues body, well, we need to put down our shopping list. So we have murder, structure, theft, crimes against the person, solicitation, conspiracy, attempt, and defenses. So now let's begin our issue spotting read now. One night, Andy went into a local bar in town. He had a large number of drinks and became intoxicated. Well, the word intoxicated definitely indicates the voluntary intoxication defense. We could probably put that down right now under the defenses of Andy. Okay. Now, when the bartender refused to serve him any more drinks, Andy flew into a rage and went to his car to get his handgun. With the handgun in his hand, Andy intended to return to the bar. Instead, he got confused and stumbled into the convenience store next door. Pointed the gun at Charles. Yeah, that's exactly right. Heat of passion. That's exactly right. The rage aspect could potentially be a heat of passion argument if we have a homicide situation, which we do. We have two homicide situations here. Now, when with a gun in his hand, Andy intended to return to the bar. Instead, he got confused and stumbled in the convenience store next door, pointed the gun at Charles, the cashier, and said, "Give me a drink or I'll shoot." When Charles hesitated, Andy pointed the gun at the ceiling and fired. So first of all, we got a possible argument here up here that he intended to return to the bar. Instead, though, he got confused and stumbled. So confused and stumbled possibly could also mean it could indicate an additional aspect as to his voluntary intoxication. Yes. And then also maybe he might argue mistake. it's a small argument, but it's still an argument that could be made in terms of Andy's defenses. Now, when Andy came into the convenience store, he pointed the gun at Charles. Well, right there, I would definitely argue aggravated assault. Of Charles. Okay. Now, the cashier and said, what did he do? He said, give me a drink or I'll shoot. That's definitely attempted murder, at least. Now, when Charles hesitated, Andy pointed the gun at the ceiling and fired. So we're definitely looking at attempted murder here of Charles. Now, at the sound of the gunshot, several store customers rushed outside. Now, they also think, too, I don't want to rush too fast. I want to yes, exactly. Robbery is exactly where I was going. I also don't want to forget something, too. That remember here, exactly, the burglary. When he stumbled into the bar, instead of going into the convenience store, what was his original intent? What was that? Andy flew into a rage and went into a car to get his gun. Why? Because the local bar in town, the bartender refused to serve him any more drinks. So when that intent, right, to get a drink, exactly, that intent is what he went into the convenience store with. So we need to make sure to argue right here in chronological order, burglary. And we want to make sure to indicate the common law modern law distinction. And then what most likely too, I want to indicate that is most likely going to be a modern law because we're not dealing with a dwelling house. We're dealing with a protected structure, the convenience store. And then we also want to make sure to argue when we talk about aggravated assault, we talk about the robbery. Now, did Andy actually get anything from the cashier? So we could actually argue here attempted robbery. Okay. Well, remember there was an entry. This is excuse me. The aspect is entry. Is the requirement for the modern law burglary. Yeah, exactly. Now, attempted murder of Charles. Okay. I'm sorry. We have attempted robbery of Charles and then attempted murder of Charles. Make sure to argue too that you have the aggravated assault of Charles when the gun was pointed at Charles. And then, okay, yes. Now, I think that satisfies everything that could be possibly argued here. We're running through our shopping list. We don't have a murder situation here. We got structure, yes. Theft, yes. Crime against the person, yes. We don't have any solicitation, conspiracy, no attempt. And we already talked about the defense. We already talked about the two attempts. Okay, so we've tackled Charles here. Now, at the sound of the gunshot, several store customers rushed outside. One of the fleeing customers bumped into Walter. Now, who was standing on the street, who was standing on the sidewalk outside the store. And the impact caused Walter to fall into the street. Before he was able to recover, Walter was struck and killed by an oncoming car. So this is what we're talking about here. Now, can we argue a battery of Walter? Question mark. We may argue that it's possible, but we definitely have the homicide of Walter. Okay. And this is going to be mainly the strong proximate cause argument because we're going to be looking to see whether the sound of the gunshot could foreseeably cause the store owners to rush outside in such a manner as to bump into Walter and to cause Walter to fall into the street and therefore cause Walter to be so struck that he was not able to recover in time and therefore that unableness of Walter to recover caused him to be to be hit and killed by an oncoming car. Or that, yeah, that condition that was a result of being struck by the store customers rushing outside caused Walter to not be able to respond, and therefore, because of his non-response, he was struck and killed by an oncoming car. Now that's Walter. Now, when Andy fired the gun, the bullet struck a metal pipe, bounced off the pipe, and hit another store customer, Vicky, in the arm. Okay, well, we definitely have a battery of Vicky here. Oh, aggravated assault. Okay, maybe aggravated battery of Vicky. You think? Oh, of the customers? Well, that see, we're not. Let's see. I don't think. Well, see, that's what I'm saying here. What would we be charging Andy for in terms of a crime concerning the customers? Well, that's an interesting argument. I'll put that down because that is a creative argument there. We'll just put it like that. Yeah, he pointed the gun at. Yeah, yeah. Actually, it was the sound. It was the sound of the gunshot. Yeah, you could argue that the sound of the gunshot made him fearful. Yeah, reasonably apprehending. It's possible. The immediacy of a harmful offensive contact. Yeah. Okay. Now, when Andy fired the gun, though, on the third paragraph, the bullet struck a metal pipe, bounced off the pipe, and hit another store customer, Vicky, in the arm. She was rushed to the hospital to receive emergency medical treatment. Unfortunately, Vicky contracted an infection while at the hospital and later died. So we not only have a battery of Vicky, which I definitely would argue aggravated battery, but we also have a homicide of Vicky as well. This is going to definitely be heavy on the year and a day rule. Because right up here, she was rushed to the hospital, and the infection that she received, well, that she contracted while at the hospital, which this infection caused her to later die from that infection. Now, excuse me, we're not sure exactly the time frame on that, but it was sometime after being shot. So that's why I put in the year and a day rule. But also, this is also going to be another heavy proximate cause argument, because we're asking ourselves here, is it foreseeable? Did the infection that she contracted at the hospital, and then which resulted in her dying from that infection, was that enough to break the causal chain? I don't think so, because she wouldn't have been there in the first place had she not been hit in the arm by the bullet that Andy fired when he fired his gun. And then the other thing we got to ask ourselves here too, as well, in terms of an intervening event, when the bullet struck a metal pipe and bounced off the pipe and hit Vicky in the arm in the first place, was that a foreseeable intervening event? In other words, not just a foreseeable intervening event, but that fact that it was a natural reaction force. In other words, would that normally naturally have resulted in someone firing a gun, having that bullet ricochet and bouncing off the pipe and hitting Vicky's arm? Or is that a natural chain of events? Yes, I believe so. Now, down here after yeah, yes, exactly. Now, further into the question here. Okay, okay. Andy claims he was so drunk he did not know what he was doing. We tackled that with voluntary intoxication. He insists he never wanted to hurt anybody. That's what we talked about under the defense of mistake. So I think what we have a complete analysis here. Make sure though that when we're talking about homicide, we can actually supra a lot of our rule statements here. I'll just write this out in terms of our template. Homicide, actual cause, proximate cause, and after proximate cause, we're going to put malice aforethought. Actually, excuse me, murder / malice aforethought. Okay, and then which definitely could bring up the felony murder rule here. Now, down here we would also bring up the argument of possibly voluntary intoxication. Small argument because of the rage that he flew into up here. Or not, I'm sorry, I said voluntary intoxication, excuse me. It's voluntary manslaughter. And then involuntary manslaughter. We would definitely put a little asterisk by proximate cause, because this would be a bigger issue because of the rushing, the sound of the gunshot causing the customers to rush outside, hitting Walter, pushing him out in the street, which then caused him to be hit by the car, and as a result of being hit, he died as a result of that. Now, concerning Vicky, though, we want to make sure also to bring up this as well. We see homicide. Now remember, this is where we would bring up our year in a day rule, because there wasn't an instantaneous death, but that it was a natural result within a year and a day of the event that caused the homicide. And then we want to make sure to bring up actual cause, proximate cause. Again, this is where we're going to talk about the intervening events, which I would say the main two are the bullet and the infection. Okay. And then we would go down and bring up, after proximate cause, murder, malice aforethought. Oh, I'll be right back. Okay, so concluding the murder malice aforethought discussion, we would probably have an additional possible discussion of felony murder here for Vicky, and then coming down we would also talk about I don't see as much voluntary manslaughter here as, well, I mean, you could argue voluntary manslaughter. Very short discussion though, because even though it might have provoked Andy to shoot his firearm, being in such rage, there could possibly be an argument that there was enough time to cool off. Then we got involuntary manslaughter. And then I think I want to make sure to space our answers out here. I think we got this. And we want to make sure to add into our voluntary intoxication the fact that Andy was so intoxicated that he was confused and stumbled into the convenience store. So I want to make sure to note that in here. So that would add to the fact that he had reached a point of intoxication that definitely could very well substantiate voluntary intoxication. And if it is a voluntary intoxication, remember, voluntary intoxication is a defense to specific intent crimes, but it is not a defense to general intent crimes. So we got to keep that in mind. And then the mistake, remember, we have to make sure that the mistake is a reasonable mistake, which would not be the case here, because a reasonable person would not have taken the course of action that Andy took. Make sure to throw in a conclusion here as to the defenses, which I don't see this as anything but maybe a voluntary intoxication for a defense for Andy, and then or possibly a voluntary intoxication as a defense for Andy. Want to make sure to have talked about all of the crimes that Andy could be charged with: the burglary, the aggravated assault of Charles, the attempted robbery of Charles, the attempted murder of Charles, possible aggravated assault of the customers, the battery of Walter, the homicide of Walter. Going through all the template. We also want to make sure to have talked about right here for the aggravated battery of Vicky, and then the homicide of Vicky right here. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you had a great time going through this question with me. There should be many more great questions coming up in the near future. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to put a shout out to Chess Cruncher TV. Keep chess crunching, Chess Cruncher. I also want to put a shout out to my Amazon Kindle book, Battling the Big Bad Baby Bar, Essay Basics. Thank you so much again for tuning in. This is a great. This is a excellent. We had an excellent time going through our essay tactics and strategies and issue spotting this question. Thank you, and God bless.